Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So back today to do the rapid fire book tag. Shelley Swearingen recently did this tag as part of her 50 in 50 days, which at the time of filming she's actually completed. So congratulations to Shelley on that feat. This tag was originally created by Girl Reading. It's an older tag, it's around about 8 years old, but it's one that I haven't done yet. And I thought, especially since today is my first day sat back down filming videos, and so I'm trying to ease myself back in, and so a tag is a good way to do that. And also it's a tag where the answers are meant to be rapid fire. I had a quick glance at them, but I didn't prep any notes for this, which I normally do with tags. I think this is just a good way of getting me back into the swing of things. So without much further ado, let's just get straight into these tag questions. Question number 1, ebook or physical book? Now, I completely understand the perks of ebooks, and every time that I go on holiday and I look at my weight restrictions, I'm thinking, yeah, it would have been a good time to have a Kindle or an e-reader. But I can't help myself, I just really like a physical book. I like the feeling in my hand, I like flipping through the pages, I like having that physical indicator of how far through a book I am. This is not to say that I will never use ebooks, because I am increasingly getting more out from my library. I do have a Kindle app on my phone, but I do tend to turn to them a lot less frequently than I do physical books. Question number 2 is paperback or hardback? In terms of beauty, you know, hardbacks can be a wondrous thing, but in terms of practicality, in terms of what I personally like to have, it is a paperback. Question number 3, online or in-store book shopping? Oh, it's got to be in-store. Yes, there are a lot of deals that you can have online, but I do enjoy going into a physical bookshop and being able to find the book that I want, or alternatively coming across a book that I've never heard about before. There's a great little pamphlet by Mark Forsyth which is called The Unknown Unknown, Bookshops and the Delight of Not Getting What You Want, which talks about this whole phenomenon that online bookstores just haven't been able to quite replicate yet. That feeling of wandering around the stacks and coming across something you'd never heard of before that immediately takes your fancy. That the algorithms of these online bookstores haven't quite been able to replicate that feeling. You'd think with how quickly TikTok is able to work out what you like, that eventually bookstores would get on that, and it would start to become eerie on how well they're able to match your book interests to their recommendations. As of yet, the only bookish space I've come across that have really been able to do that is Storygraph and their recommendations. And even then, it can be a little bit hit and miss. Question number 4, trilogies or series? Now, I mean, the obvious answer is whatever fits for the story, but for my personal enjoyment, I would say trilogies are more enjoyable. I do like knowing that there is a clear beginning, middle, and end. I like knowing that there is some sort of momentum and end point for a story, rather than the uncertainty that can often happen with a lot of longer series, where you're just never quite sure if the story is going to be wrapped, and then you never get closure on these characters. Trilogies, on the other hand, a lot simpler, and they do make my brain that little bit happier. Question number 5 is heroes or villains? I'm not denying that there are some villains out there who are often a lot more interesting than their heroes, especially as somebody who enjoys theatre. Like, I know that villains would be more fun to play, but I am ultimately a hero's girl at heart. I like rooting for a hero. I always wanted to play the protagonist growing up, and I would often get frustrated when, like in school plays, I wasn't cast as the protagonist. I like hero stories, I like rooting for them, I like seeing them try and fail and then ultimately succeed. I like going on that journey with them. Question number 6, a book you want everyone to read. This is where it would have been better for me to prep things, but it is the rapid fire book tag, and what is the first book that comes to mind? I'm gonna have to be really typical for myself and just say Pride and Prejudice. I love Pride and Prejudice. I don't understand you if you don't like it. I think it's great. There's nothing to not like about it. I understand in theory that everybody has their tastes. We're all different and that is a great thing, but Pride and Prejudice is one of those books where when people say that they didn't like it, I'm like, you just didn't get it. I know that is reductive. I know that that is technically wrong, and yet it's still the reaction that I have. And there are very few books that I have that for. Like even Wolf Hall, which I absolutely adore, I can completely understand why people wouldn't get on board with it, or why it would put some people off, but Pride and Prejudice, I'm like, what's wrong with you? How do you not like it? It's delightful. Question number 7, recommend an underrated book. Okay, so a book that I just never see people giving it its dues is The Instrumentalist by Harriet Constable. It came out in hardback last year. I feel like it had a little bit of a marketing push from its publishers, and yet I heard nobody talk about it. I feel like I was the only person who read this book. It's now out in paperback. It is absolutely fantastic. It is historical fiction. It's set in 1700s Italy, looking at a young girl who is a violin prodigy who ends up being tutored by Antonio Vivaldi. This restrictive school that she is brought up in, where girls are basically taught to either be musicians, or if they do not succeed as musicians, they are ultimately married off. They have no control over their future, and so succeeding is Anna Maria's only goal. It has to be, because the alternative is unthinkable. Her drive and ambition and how that puts her at odds with her peers, and then the devastation that she feels when she discovers that Vivaldi is actually taking her composition suggestions and passing them off for his own. And I love this book because it's so immersive and evocative, and it's got this complicated lead character who you know you want to do well, but she doesn't always go about it in the best way, particularly when it comes to these female friendships. And I loved reading about her. Question number 9 is the last book you bought, and actually I can go get them. I bought 3. I was in the Oxfam charity shop on Tell Street, which is always really well stocked, and I got 3 different books of different sorts. In my brain I've been like, no Charlotte, you don't need to buy any more books, but these all just had to come home with me. The first one's probably the most random choice, but I saw it and I was like, well, when else am I going to get this? When else is it going to be in a charity shop of all places? And it was the Homeric hymns, just different ancient Greek hymns to the various gods. I don't know, I just decided I had to have it. Then there was this new edition of Wicked. So I have read Wicked, The Life and the Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire before. I recently reread it just before the movie came out, but my original copy is, to put it mildly, falling apart. I've had my copy since I was about 14. I've owned a copy of Wicked longer than I've not owned a copy of Wicked. And yeah, it is quite busted up. And they recently re-released all of Gregory Maguire's Oz books, originally in hardback, but then they've come out with the paperback versions. And this was, I think, pretty much brand new. The spine isn't cracked. I don't think the person who bought this originally has read it. And it was only £3.49 from Oxfam. So yeah, it came home with me. And then the last book that I picked up was Lascivious Bodies, A Sexual History of the 18th Century. So some of you may know, if you've been a long-time viewer of mine, that I really enjoy books about the history of sex and sexuality. I was originally planning on doing a series called Super Sexy History Books, and I still have intentions of continuing that series where I pick 3 books to do with the history of sex and sexuality and just discuss them. The issue that I have with this series is the fact that when I posted the very first video in this series, the only one to date, it ended up getting over 1,000 views within a day, which is not normal for my channel. And I realised that the reason it was getting so many views is because I had the word sexy in the title, and so there were a bunch of sex bots just spamming this video. They clearly got a different video than they thought they were going to get. And I don't know, it just kind of scared me a little bit. It's happened a handful of times where one of my videos just shoots up in terms of views within about a day of it being posted. And I always feel really suspicious when that happens. I always think it's like a precursor to something bad happening. So yeah, I haven't done one of those videos in about 3 or 4 years because it just kind of scares me. But I have a bunch of books and I keep on buying new ones on this topic. So clearly it is still an interest of mine. So yeah, I just need to get over myself, basically. Question number 10, the weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark. That is a very good question because I will just use anything. Receipts, post-its, random scraps of paper, my finger, pens and pencils. Actually, maybe this. So this is actually like a little hair sword, which I bought from Rosie over at Sparkles Books, her Etsy shop. This is basically for your hair. Like if you put your hair up in a bun, you could just stick this little sword in it. I thought it looked quite cool. But yeah, I have definitely just used this, stuck in a book. Oh God. Just knight myself. Question number 11, used books, yes or no? Yes, obviously. Did you not see my used book haul? Question number 12, top 3 favourite genres. So for me, I don't think it's any secret, my top 3 genres are historical fiction, history non-fiction and romance. There was a time where I might have swapped out romance for classics, probably about 5 years ago, but I am increasingly reading fewer classics, which I'm sad about, and romance is kind of pipping it to the post. Question 13, borrow or buy? As much as my bank account would like me to say borrow, the truth is that I do like to buy books. I am trying to borrow more out of the library, and I do, just not anywhere near as much as I buy from charity shops or from physical bookshops, because I work in the publishing industry and in my brain I'm like, it's good, I'm supporting my industry. Question 14, character or plot? I say it all the time, I am a character driven reader, so while I do think that you need both for a really good book, if it's the choice between a book with a really great plot but the characters are just flat one-dimensional, I'm not going to want to pick that over a plotless book with really great developed characters. I need people to root for, people that I want to understand, people who I enjoy seeing their relationships develop with each other, and so it always has to be character for me. Question number 15, long or short books? I feel like in terms of what I actually read, it's probably short books. What I get the most enjoyment out of though is probably the longer books, and a lot of my favourite books are long books because frankly, if I'm in a world and I'm really loving it, I want that book to be as long as possible, and I probably get more enjoyment when I just have more to mull over. There's a reason why the last time that I read Les Mis, I got to the end of it and you know, I'd been reading that book for the better part of 3 months, and yet I got to the last page and thought, wait, no, that can't be it. 1,300 pages later and I'm still asking for more. Conversely, question 16 is long or short chapters. And yeah, I'm a simple creature. I like short chapters because it makes me feel like I'm progressing through the book quicker. It tickles something back there. It makes me feel productive. Question number 17, name the first 3 books you think of. Oh God, it's Pride and Prejudice again. It's always the answer. The Book Thief and Wolf Hall. Very typical for me. What is not those 3 books? What are books? Jane Eyre? Question number 18, books that make you laugh or cry? This is a great question because I'm actually not the most outwardly emotional reader. It's a different thing when it comes to film, TV or theatre. I can cry quite easily at films, but books, in order to get like an actual laugh out of me or a tear to run down my face, is pretty tricky. I think if I have the choice, I want a book that's going to make me laugh. There's something about a book just being able to make you laugh out loud that just feels so great, and it is rare, so I do treasure it when it happens. Question 19, our world or fictional worlds? For me, maybe a controversial answer, but I do prefer reading about our world, which is probably why I like historical fiction so much. Maybe it's a sign that I'm not adventurous enough a reader because I don't really want to learn whole new different systems, which is why my dabbling in fantasy is kind of few and far between. But I'm just like, oh god, it's enough to have to work out this world without having to work out an entirely different one. Question number 20, audiobooks, yes or no? Obviously a firm yes. Question 21, do you ever judge a book by its cover? Of course I do. It's another one where I'm like, if you say you don't, I think you're lying. I do like a pretty book. I do frequently change out my copies of my favourite books for a prettier edition. And I have been swayed many times by a pretty cover with just a mere glance at the blurb to maybe work out if I might like it. And I do sometimes get led astray by that, but I can't say I regret it. Question 22, book to movie or book to TV adaptations? Honestly, I don't have an answer for that. I like both for different reasons. They are different mediums. Obviously a TV adaptation has more time to make it a little bit more accurate to the book and include more book detail, but movies probably have a bit more budget and often just have more of an ability to make it a beautiful cinematic spectacle, and I think there's a lot to say about that. It's why I can never truly get on board with the debates around Jane Austen adaptations, particularly the big battle between the 95 Pride and Prejudice and the 2005. Like, they are such different things that comparing them makes no sense to me. I am so happy to live in a world where I have both because they appeal to different parts of my brain. If I want to sit down and just luxuriate in Jane Austen for 6 hours, then the BBC miniseries is right there. If I want to luxuriate in Jane Austen for a little bit longer, I can watch the Lizzie Bennet diaries. And that's what, like 15 hours of content, maybe more. But sometimes you want something a bit quicker, something that is going to get the vibe across in as quick a format as possible. And that is where the film is so brilliant. And it's stunning. It is such a beautiful film. Do they have to cut out certain characters and plot points in order to make it a more streamlined film? Yes. But when I'm in the middle of watching it, I'm honestly not thinking about what's missing from the book, because quite frankly, if I wanted the book, I could just read the book. I'm just generally for more adaptations of everything, regardless of whether it is film or television. Like, am I a little bit nervous about the Netflix Pride and Prejudice? Yes. But I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that there are still people who want to make Pride and Prejudice. Do I want more for other books? Absolutely. But I'm not turning down this new Pride and Prejudice. Absolutely not. I'm going to be there day one. I'm going to watch that. Question 24, series or standalones? That is hard. That is really hard. But ultimately, I would prefer one standalone work and never get any information other than that standalone, something that is functionally narratively complete, than a series that maybe goes nowhere or takes the characters down paths that they should not be going down, that are out of character for them, for the sake of extra story. I think that's where I land. A lot of my favourite books are standalones. Pride and Prejudice, The Book Thief, Jane Eyre. Even any of the books in the Wolf Hall trilogy could work very well as standalone books, and you wouldn't feel like you were missing anything. So yeah, so if I ended up losing all of my favourite series, I would be very sad about that. But I would say standalones. And then finally, question number 25 is to tag others. Now, because this tag is 8 years old, I don't know who has already done it. So I'm going to link a bunch of people down below, and hopefully you haven't already done it. Do let me know any of your answers to these questions down below in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.